When you hear your alarm clock go off in the morning, do you automatically get up and run, or are you slow to rise? For most of us, when we hear the alarm clock, we are slow to respond, thinking lives aren't going to end if we don't get up at that exact moment. However, there is one group of people in particular where the quicker they can get up and respond to the sound of an alarm, the more likely they can save lives. We are referring to firefighters stationed across the United States. Roughly 30% of the fire departments in the United States have paid firefighters in their ranks, compared to a staggering 70% for volunteers. Every fire department plays a critical role in their community, for it can only take seconds for death and destruction to occur. The two fire departments we will discuss are paid, and may be familiar to some viewers due to several appearances in the media. Yet, you may not know the history or the important roles they've played in modern firefighting and medical history. In this episode of Forgotten Heroes, we will discuss the Chicago Fire Department and the Los Angeles County Fire Department. The need for a fire department arose in Chicago starting from the very first building constructed, the Saguenash Tavern. It was built in 1831 and became a staple piece of the growing town for about 20 years until it was forced to close due to a fire in 1851. However, the first form of firefighting was a year after the tavern opened, the Washington Volunteers, in 1832. The following year, about 3 months after Chicago was incorporated into a town, in November 1833, the first city ordinance concerning fire safety was passed, prohibiting, quote, the passing of any stove pipe through the roof, partition, or siding of any building, unless guarded by tin or iron 6 inches from the wood, unquote. The fine for breaking this law was $5 in 1833, or around $197 in 2026 with inflation. On top of this, if the issue wasn't fixed in 48 hours, an additional $5 was added to the repeated charge. Due to this rule being passed, the city's first fire warden, or what is more commonly known today as a fire marshal, Benjamin Jones, was appointed. By the following year, the town had 4 fire wardens, each with their own part of town as their responsibility. They were each paid monthly for inspection, mainly for the stovepipe ordinance. In 1835, a man named Herman Hugginen was appointed as the city's first fire chief engineer of the Chicago Fire Department, or what is more commonly known today simply as a fire chief. As the city continued to grow, so did its need for a fire department. In February 1858, the department started to test out a steam pumper named Long John. Volunteer firefighters were fearful that this new technology would make them obsolete. They were soon proven right, when on August 2, 1858, the City Council of Chicago passed the ordinance to convert the city's volunteer fire departments into a jointly paid one. Engine Company No. 3 is recognized by the Chicago Fire Department as being the first completely paid fire department in Chicago, and was one of 18 companies made up of 15 engines and 3 hook and ladders that were transferred from volunteer to a paid department, yet volunteers still saw service. According to a government document on Chicago.gov, in 1886, there were still 125 volunteer firefighters with the department, only 5 more than the 120 paid firefighters. History would soon show the importance of the fire department and its limitations, along with a lesson that came at a high price. This lesson would be the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, which destroyed 1/3 of the city, killed around 200 to 300 people, left 100,000 people homeless, and was a painful lesson for the Chicago Fire Department that still has a role even to this day. Something of interest is that the day before the fire, on October 7th, the fire department was involved in another fire that was on a slightly smaller scale, but had consequences that happened the following day. 1871 had a 14-week drought for Chicago. Since many buildings were made out of wood, this was a recipe for disaster. October 7th proved that, when a boiler fire broke out at the Lowell and Holmes planing mill. The fire quickly spread thanks to multiple wooden structures in the area. By the time the fire was under control, the firefighters were exhausted and one of the 17 engines was disabled. To add insult to injury, 2 more engines were already in the repair shop, leaving a city with 14 engines. The firefighters only had a few hours to rest before their city was about to turn into a bonfire. According to legend, the fire on October 8th was caused by a cow owned by Catherine O'Leary when it kicked over a lantern. However, this has never been confirmed. What is known for sure was that a fire did indeed start somewhere on the O'Leary property. Combined with the city in the middle of a massive drought, sleep-deprived firefighters, lack of equipment, incorrectly being sent to a different location due to inaccurate information, and a vast majority of the buildings being made of wood were all major contributing factors in why the fire was so devastating. It was thanks to the weather, when some much-needed rain came in and doused the fire, that the Great Chicago Fire was finally extinguished. The fire served as a key reminder of the ineffectiveness of the department at the time. As a result of the fire, the department ordered 3 tugboats and converted them into fireboats, named Geyser, Yosemite, and Fire Queen. They were followed by a steel fireboat named Illinois. For years after the fire, it was generally assumed that O'Leary was to blame. However, modern evidence shows that the long-standing myth was started by the Chicago Evening Journal, as was confirmed in a Chicago City Council Journal document dated October 28, 1997. It was due to this newfound evidence that Catherine O'Leary was exonerated of any blame on the same day, 102 years after Catherine O'Leary passed away at the age of 68 on July 3, 1895. Nearly a century after the fire in 1956, the city purchased the land where O'Leary's farm once stood, and turned the land into the Chicago Fire Department Training Academy. In 1878, Captain David Kenyon was given credit for creating the sliding pole, which became one of the most iconic features attributed to fire stations and was placed in the quarters, or station, of Engine 21. In 1889, in its largest annexation, the city of Chicago incorporated the districts of Hyde Park, Lake, Lakeview, Jefferson, Cicero, Roseland, Ivory Park, Brownsmanville, and Riverdale. When the city annexed these areas, the Chicago Fire Departments also incorporated the last of the volunteer fire departments in the immediate Chicago area. By 1900, the city had 5 fireboats, 2 water towers, 4 hand engines, 101 steam engines, 27 chemical engines, 86 hose carts, carriages and wagons, 34 hook and ladders, 23 chemical extinguishers, and 102 portable pumps. To man all that equipment, 1,142 paid firefighters were also with the department. To lead these men, the city was divided into areas overseen by a battalion chief, which by then there were 17 battalion areas. Horses were still in use, and the city had 503. On New Year's Eve in 1903, another major fire broke out. This time, due to the increase in equipment, manpower, and training, the fire was out in 30 minutes. 104 people were rescued, but 602 were killed by toxic fumes and smoke, highlighting that fires could kill in multiple ways. In 1906, a man named James Horan was appointed as fire marshal. Horan did have some authority in the department, as between 1906 to 1910, he began to renovate the department itself, and was credited with not only the building of many new firehouses, but the founding of many new engines and truck companies. These being engine companies 101 to 117 and truck companies 30 to 34. Horan's progress was stopped when on December 22, 1910, he and 28 other firefighters and 3 civilians were killed when a wall at an Armour and Company plant, which was on fire, collapsed on them. It was the single deadliest event for the Chicago Fire Department, yet, despite this tragedy, the department continued to grow. 6 years later, they introduced their first motorized fire truck, a 650-gallon-per-minute rotary pump built by Webb Motor Company, assigned to Engine Company 102. 11 years later, the last horses attended their final call before being retired. When the last horse was retired, Chicago became the first major U.S. city to have an all-motorized fleet of fire department vehicles. In 1923, the department started doing maintenance work on its own equipment, including repairing, repainting, and replacing damaged equipment from vehicles to tools. In 1927, the department started standardizing all equipment. Combined with increased training, the department became a well-oiled machine. 20 more new fire stations were built and more crew were hired to man these new stations. The equipment inventory grew between 1927 to 1929, including 14 hook and ladders, plus special equipment like 6 ambulances, 4 foam rigs, which used firefighting foam to put out special fires, 3 floodlight trailers, and 3 rescue units. It was also around this time the units were given red and green lights, as Fire Commissioner Albert Goodrich did note that ships had the same setup to warn other ships of their presence in bad weather. This same setup is still in effect in the form of the main light bars on top of the apparatus aboard many of the CFD units to this day. Another design element that hasn't changed is the color scheme of black, red, and white of the battalion chiefs, with black roofs, red sides, and white at the bottoms. This started when the department brought 28 Model A Fords for use by the battalion chiefs. This has since expanded most of the vehicles in the current CFD inventory, although ambulances don't use this paint scheme, as don't the apparatuses assigned to the airports. By around the 1920s, the department had been divided into 6 divisions that in turn were divided among 28 battalions. Despite being affected by the Great Depression in the early 1930s, the department still made it through, and in 1936 they replaced their last wooden fire station as 11 more modern fire stations were brought online thanks to the WAP, or Works Progress Administration, later known as Works Projects Administration. This was part of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal Agency, which helped to employ workers who lost their jobs during the Great Depression. Another addition that was added in the late 30s was loudspeakers, which gave the department the ability to dispatch the near exact location of fire and transmit it to the required units, so the men and units could respond more effectively. However, the 1930s also had some issues, as legislation enacted required that set the mandatory age of retirement at 63. To top it off, 2 major fires occurred. The 1934 Stockyard Fire once again threatened the whole city and cost $8 million worth of damage. With inflation, that would be roughly $197 million in 2026. Then, in 1939, there was a fire at the Rosenbaum elevator. This fire was a real test for the city's fireboats. Only 2 were in service, the Joseph Medill and the almost brand new Fred A. Buss. Joseph Medill was completed in 1908 and was built in a time where coal was the main fuel supply for ships, and as such, she still ran on coal. Twice during the fire, she had to leave to resupply on coal, which showed how running on coal could be a limitation for her. Fred A. Buss was able to keep on scene until her steam turbines blew out and she was disabled. However, thanks to the fireboat's help, the fire was under control in 48 hours, an act which normally took 5 to 6 days according to fire officials. The fire still did cost $4 million, which in 2026 would be roughly $95 million. The fire also claimed the lives of 9 people. The tragic fires continued into the 1940s, when 5 firefighters were killed in an explosion in 1940, followed by a building collapse in 1943 that killed 8 more firefighters. When the US entered World War II, the fire department was not spared from men getting drafted. 516 firefighters would join the armed forces, with 7 being killed during the war. When the war ended, however, the Chicago Fire Department suffered a major boom in hiring veterans who were hungry for jobs with job security, which the CFD could provide. The CFD also welcomed returning members who went off to war. One of those men was a Medal of Honor recipient, Jose McCarthy of Truck 11. When he came back, he took the fleet of 4 ambulances and their crew, reorganized them, and helped them become one of the largest fire department ambulance services in the country. In the years that followed, from 1949 to 1956, the department began a massive modernizing program, replacing old vehicles and getting more modern ones. In that time, 122 new engines, 37 new ladder trucks, 14 new squad trucks, and 2 new fireboats were put into service. In 1955, Michael J. Corrigan stepped down as fire commissioner, ending a career of 62 years with the department. He claimed he never lost a man while being commissioner. However, this is false, as the incidents in 1940 and 1943 proved otherwise. In 1955, 3 shifts were added. Each shift was on for 24 hours, then off duty for 48 hours. In 1957, Robert J. Quinn was appointed as fire commissioner. He contributed to the department by establishing better communications between dispatch and the units themselves by integrating radios in each unit. This allowed fire department dispatch to relay information to units that were outside their station or have them respond to additional calls. A new type of unit, known as snorkels, were also added to the growing number of vehicles. Quinn also authorized a new training center to be constructed in 1961, as well as 36 new modern fire stations. The EMS division also saw some growth under Quinn. The 16 Cadillac ambulances that were around in 1957 were replaced by 43 modular vans by 1977. In 1974, the department started employing both male and female paramedics. Unfortunately, the loss of firefighters continued in 1961, when 9 more firefighters died when a warehouse fire erupted. One of the men who responded was Fire Commissioner Quinn. 2 of those firefighters who were killed were Battalion Chiefs George Rees of Battalion 1 and George Kunn of Battalion 5. Kunn's death stunned the department, as according to some sources, Kunn died with rookie firefighter Robert Burns. Many surviving firefighters, mainly Fire Marshal John Megan, believed that the other firefighters died trying to save Kunn and Burns, even though they knew time was running out. At their memorial service, Megan said, quote, "Time ran out on us, and if tomorrow we are faced with the same situation, we will again do our utmost in saving lives, whether it be our fellow firefighters or civilians. If we don't do that, then there would be no reason for a fire department." Quinn would retire in 1978 after serving 49 years with the department, which included 21 years as the fire commissioner. The 1980s and 1990s saw a wave of innovation for the department, with portable radios being available to all fire department units, meaning firefighters were not limited to their radios in their vehicles. The department started ordering engines with 4-door enclosed cabs, which kept the firefighters from being exposed to the harsh weather conditions which Chicago was known for. 5 more ambulance units were added to bring it up to 54. 3 more were added in the 1990s. About 54 ambulances were replaced in 1990 by newer models, along with 1 new hazmat truck and 3 new commands. The following year, 30 new fire department buggies were added. 1991 also saw a dual-purpose fire station at Midway Airport, with 8 vehicle bays being put into service. In 1992, 17 new pumpers and 18 new buggies, which were vehicles used by different command personnel, were also added. In 1996, a new collapse rescue unit, 521, was put into service. A new life-saving device, pass alarms, short for personal alert safety systems, were added to firefighters' arsenal in 1987. If a firefighter is motionless for 30 seconds or more, it will emit a high-pitched whistling sound and activate a flashing red light. This device is intended to help fellow firefighters find them if they are trapped, injured, or lost. This device is still used to this day. Today, the Chicago Fire Department is comprised of 96 engine companies, 61 truck companies, 80 ambulances, 4 squad companies with 2 vehicles per squad, 25 battalion chief units, 9 EMS chiefs, and 1 fireboat, plus numerous specialty units spread out in the city's 96 fire stations. Some stations only house an engine or truck, while many can support numerous units and special equipment. For example, Engine 30, located in Ukrainian Village, is the only unit housed there, while Engine Company 16 in Bronzeville houses 14 units. Included in the station numbers, the CFD operates 5 fire stations at both O'Hare and nearby Midway Airport. 4 stations are operated at O'Hare, while 1 is operated at Midway. O'Hare Station 3 mainly operates as a normal fire station, as it doesn't contain any ARFF fire trucks, but houses 2 engines, 1 ambulance, 3 squads, those being Squad 7, Squad 7A, and Squad 7S, along with multiple command units and specialized units. Station 1 is home to an engine, 1 ambulance, 2 truck companies, several units involved in hazmat, and at least 4 crash tenders. On top of this, it is also home to 4 specialized units. Station 2 is home to 2 engines, an ambulance, 4 ARFF trucks, and 2 specialty units. Station 4 is home to 1 engine, Battalion 13 and Battalion 13R, Battalion 13's reserve unit. Midway's fire station consists of 4 ARFF trucks and 5 specialty units. The Robert J. Quinn Fire Academy, the one built on the O'Leary's farm, is currently being replaced by a new joint facility between the CFD and the Chicago Police Department at 4433 West Chicago Avenue. One noticeable thing that we discovered while doing research for this video was, at the time of writing, that the city of Chicago has been facing backlash from its own fire department due to the conditions of their vehicles, mainly engines and ladder trucks. According to a document published by FEMA, page 17 notes, quote, "The National Protection Agency, Standard 1901, does not recommend the removal of apparatus from frontline service after 15 years and from all emergency service vehicles after 25 years, but these are very subjective numbers based on quality of the original vehicle. The usage of the vehicle over its lifetime and, the most importantly, the quality and quantity of the preventative maintenance that the vehicle received over its years of service. As such, no department is required to follow this standard, but it is a mere recommendation. However, photos from the Facebook page 2nd Battalion CFD have reportedly shown reserved units, some of which date back to the early 1990s, being pressed into front-life service, some of which are in poor condition. One example is unit number D545, who was rewarded for its 30 years of service with a birthday cake. The reason behind this is a mixture of backlog orders from the COVID-19 pandemic, supply chain issues, and surprisingly, a controlled market. There are three big companies that control an estimated 80% of the market. They are Rev Group, Oshkosh, and Rosenbauer. Rev Group in turn owns several brands such as E1, Ferrara, KME, and Spartan Emergency Response. E1 can produce vehicles such as engines, different types of ladder trucks, heavy rescues, tankers, and even mobile command centers, and that is not all. Due to time constraints, if you want to know more, we will post a link to their website in the description below so you can see for yourself how many types of vehicles they can build. Oshkosh is most known for their ARF trucks, or airport fire trucks. Rosenbauer produces several types of vehicles, including engines, ladder trucks, and has even started rolling out electric fire engines. As a result of these companies owning such a large percentage of the market, they have basically formed a monopoly in which they control prices that the city's departments, and in the cases of volunteer fire departments, the community all have to pay up. This is also why they have such a backlog. It's these companies that have caused a bottleneck where they're taking on orders faster than they can produce the vehicles themselves. For example, the Rosenbauer factory in Fremont, Nebraska could take somewhere between 6 to 12 weeks to produce a single ladder, after the chassis, which includes the cab and the steel underportion of the vehicle that forms the underbody. This is because different departments have different needs. But how does the Chicago issue compare to other departments? Well, we are able to give you an example. In Chicago, only 7 stations are equipped with 2024 engines, none with 2025. At least several stations are equipped with 2025 ladder trucks, and 1 new hazmat unit was confirmed. In comparison, at the Omaha Fire Department in Omaha, Nebraska, only 5 of their engines can date back to the early 2010s, besides brush trucks and a few specialty units. They are the oldest frontline units in the OFD, and those are soon to be replaced. This is due to a plan enacted back in 2022, where the Omaha Fire Department decided to go with a single vendor to replace their entire fleet of ladder trucks and engines. Ambulances, which are called medics by the department, would be purchased in a similar fashion, but by a separate vendor that would supply the ambulances. At the time of writing, Omaha has received a new hazmat truck, 2 additional engines, and a ladder that were 2025 models to hit the streets. On top of that, all 7 Battalion Chief vehicles have been replaced by 2024 models and have 4 2024 ladder trucks and 7 2024 engines. Many of the new ambulances have already been built and were put into service in 2022. Now this leads to several major pros for the Omaha Fire Department. On top of receiving their equipment sooner, they also spend less time training firefighters on equipment that is different, i.e. the controls on the pump are the same on Engine 2 as they are on Engine 53. However, Chicago cannot apply a single dealer solution due to their higher population density, higher call volume, and because they require several times more units than Omaha. As a result, they are facing an issue that will be there for the foreseeable future. In 1990, director Ron Howard began production on a film called Backdraft. The film's premise follows 2 brothers. The older brother, Lieutenant Stephen Bull McCaffrey, is the officer of the fictional Engine 17. His younger brother, Brian McCaffrey, has struggled to get out of his brother's shadow, while also suffering from watching his father die in a fire when he was a kid. Both characters suffer their struggles throughout the film, while also facing a series of backdrafts that are being investigated by fire investigator Donald Shadow Rimgall, who is trying to determine how the fire started and, eventually, who started them. The film stars William Baldwin as Brian McCaffrey, Kurt Russell as Stephen McCaffrey, Scott Glenn as firefighter John Axe Adcox, Jennifer Leigh as Jennifer Vaitkus, Brian's love interest, Donald Sutherland as former arsonist Ronald Bartel, and Robert De Niro as fire investigator Rimgall. The film was released on May 24, 1991 by Universal Pictures on a $40 million budget. It would make back its budget by nabbing a total box office profit from both the US and international markets of $151.4 million, making it the 14th biggest film of 1991. While the film was praised for its special effects and performances, it was also panned by critics and even by actual firefighters. While film critics were more focused on the storyline, firefighters had concern about accuracy throughout the movie, such as that firefighters in the film rarely use their scuba or pass device, and the fact that backdrafts are inaccurately depicted. Fire investigators also disagreed with a quote from Robert De Niro's character, Donald Shadow Rimgall. The quote in question is said during a conversation between Rimgall and Brian McCaffrey. "Fire is a living thing, Brian. It breathes, it eats, and it hates. The only way to beat it is to think like it. To know that this flame will spread this way across the door and up across the ceiling, not because of the physics of flammable liquids, but because it wants to. Some guys on this job, the fire owns them, makes them fight on its level, but the only way to truly kill it is to love it a little." Fire investigators argue that fire is not a living entity, but rather a chemical reaction. The real-life Chicago Fire Station 65 stood as the actual structure that housed Engine 17 and Truck 46. This wasn't Universal's first go-around with a movie or TV show concerning firefighting, and it wouldn't be its last. Starting on October 10, 2012, Universal Television, in partnership with legendary television production company Wolf Entertainment, created the TV show Chicago Fire. The show focuses on a group of firefighters assigned to the fictional Fire Station 51. Stationed at Firehouse 51 are Engine 51, Truck 81, Squad 3, Ambulance 61, and Battalion 25. As with Backdraft, all the numbers are either completely fictional or are a retired number from units that are no longer used, known as dead numbers. Originally, the show used retired or reserved apparatus for the show. However, this has started to change, with Truck 81 and Squad 3 acquiring rigs from Oak Forest Fire and Rescue Department and Antioch Fire Department. The vehicle used for Engine 51 has remained the same for the whole series, being an engine acquired from the Bellwood, Illinois Fire Department. The two exceptions are Ambulance 61, which is the retired Ambulance 47, based out of the real Firehouse 108, and B559, which is used as the vehicle for Battalion 25. She is a retired apparatus of EMS Chief 459 and EMS Chief 455. The show was a massive success, leading to two spin-off shows, Chicago PD and Chicago Med, each focusing on their respective fields. As of 2026, the show is in its 14th season and is typically broadcast on what's known as Chicago Wednesday, where it is broadcast with a sister series on NBC stations and is also available on Universal streaming service Peacock. The Los Angeles County Fire Department covers a vast majority of Los Angeles County in California. However, we are going to stress right off the bat that this is not the same department as the City of Los Angeles Fire Department that's known as the LAFD. The LAFD serves the City of Los Angeles, while the Los Angeles County Fire Department is responsible for the communities in LA County to which the City of Los Angeles resides. As a result of this, we will be calling the Los Angeles County Fire Department either as is or by its abbreviation, LACOFD. While its call rate is ranked 4th busiest in the nation behind the FDNY, CFD, and LAFD, it has a unique setup, mainly concerning its approach to medical treatment. But before we can go any further, let's go back and discuss how this department came to be and some milestones that it reached. The early history of the Los Angeles County Fire Department is complicated, to say the least. This is because for the first part of the 20th century, the Los Angeles County Fire Department has shared history with the Forestry Department. As a result, we'll be going briefly over a few key moments before 1948. Events dated after 1948 will be covered with more details, as starting in 1948, the Forestry Department was combined with the LACOFD, creating a combined department under the LACOFD name. The department's origins date back to the late 1800s with the formation of two separate departments. The first department, the county forester, was charged with protecting natural resources and responsible for planting and maintaining department landscapes. The second department, the county fish and game warden, was then assigned the responsibility as county fire warden. On May 11, 1911, the board created the County of Los Angeles Board of Forestry, which later became the Los Angeles County Forestry Department. In 1919, over 135,000 acres of fires blackened Los Angeles County, prompting the merging of these two departments, which resulted in greater emphasis on fire suppression, creating the County Forester and Fire Warden. Between September 1923 and 1925, 31 separate fire districts were formed, the first two being Signal Hall and Santa Monica Canyon. This would mark the official beginning of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. The department was made up of the following departments: Baldwin Park Volunteer Fire Department, Bellflower Volunteer Fire Department, Bel Verde Volunteer Fire Department, Bel Verde Gardens Volunteer Fire Department. Chief Forester Stuart J. Flintham, who was already Chief of Forester, Fire Warden, and Fish and Game, became the department's first fire chief. During his reign, the Los Angeles County Fire Department bought its first new units, 2 Fords and 1 Dodge. Flintham would lead the department for a total of 5 years until he died on January 10, 1925 from an unknown illness. His assistant, Spencer Turner, became the next Los Angeles County Fire Chief on June 8th of the same year. He would serve as fire chief from 1925 to 1952 for 27 years. While the fog hose had been an off-and-on concept since 1863, Battalion Chief Glenn Gerald Griswold helped make it widespread in 1942, first with the LACOFD and then to the U.S. Navy to help fight shipboard fires. Griswold would sadly be killed in action on December 27, 1943. The fog hose has become a staple in firefighting technology, with the concept even hitting the civilian market for use as a gardening hose adapter. Starting in 1949, the Los Angeles County Fire Department became separate from the Forestry Department, and with that separation, several more departments joined the Los Angeles County Fire Department. Artesia Fire Protection District, Bell Fire Protection District, Clearwater Hines Fire Protection District, La Crescenta Valley Fire Protection District, Laguna Volunteer Fire Department, Lancaster Volunteer Fire Department, Lawndale Volunteer Fire Department, Lenox Fire Protection District, Lomita Volunteer Fire Department, Maywood Fire Protection District, Miramonte Florence Graham Volunteer Fire Department, New Hall Fire Protection District, Newark Fire Protection District, Palmdale Volunteer Fire Department, Puente Fire Protection District, San Dimas Volunteer Fire Department, and Signal Hill Fire Protection District. In 1951, Chief Turn announced his retirement, which was completed by early 1952 when Fire Chief Cecil R. Jere became the department's third fire chief. However, he was chief for about a year before he was tragically killed while responding to brush fire. As such, Chief Deputy Keith Klinger became the Los Angeles County Fire Department's fourth chief in 1953. It was this year that stations started receiving numbers and were referred to as such instead of by names. In 1956, when the Los Angeles County Sheriff Department received 2 Bell 47G2 helicopters, one was detailed to the fire department to conduct water drop experiments. The following year, the helicopters conducted the first water drop of 35 gallons. For reference, a Sikorsky S-70 Firehawk, the helicopter most commonly used by the department today, can hold up to 1,000 gallons. 1956 also saw Chief Klinger enact the Lakewood Plan, which basically allowed towns, communities, and even some cities in Los Angeles County to basically contract their fire protection to the Los Angeles County Fire Department. The 50s also saw the Huntington Park Fire Department being merged with the LACOFD. The 1960s were a year of innovation and moments in history. In 1961, a helicopter capable of carrying 100 gallons was introduced. In 1962, the department opened a petroleum firefighting school at Del Valle. This is crucial as California does have substantial oil deposits and as such has massive refineries. In 1963, Chief Klinger put into motion a plan that would construct a fire station every 10 minutes around the San Gabriel Mountain front county. In 1964, new pumping equipment was developed by Captain Frank Hamp and a select crew of firefighters. Then, in 1965, the Watts riots broke out, which was a result of public outrage at the racist and abusive practices of the Los Angeles Police Department. During the 4-day riot, multiple acts of arson were committed. In fact, one member of the LAFD, firefighter Warren E. Tilson of LAFD's Engine 61, was killed instantly when the wall of a burning grocery store fell on top of him. Though the fire was mainly within Los Angeles city limits, 40% of the overall damage took place in Los Angeles County. As such, the Los Angeles County Fire Department continued to respond. Tragedy struck on November 1, 1967, when 12 crew members from U.S. Forestry Service were overrun by the Loop Fire and were killed. Los Angeles County Fire Department pilot Ronald Barton made an attempt to rescue them, but failed. Despite this, he was awarded the Pilots Association's Award for Skillful Flying. In 1968, during the Libre Fire, the crew of Engine 382 got overrun by the fire, but the only fatality they suffered was Captain Phil Goodell, who died from severe burns. That same year, during the Canyon Inn fire, Foreman George Thomas and 7 teenage kids from the Los Angeles County Juvenile Prohibition Program were killed. 5 teenagers survived, with one stating, "We were cutting a line around it when suddenly the fire came over the hill behind us. I heard the foreman yell, 'Run, run, run,' but those fires go like that. I ran in a different direction." 1969 saw 2 major events occur. On June 30th, after 16 years as chief of the department, Chief Klinger retired. He was succeeded by Division Chief Richard H. Houts on July 10th. The second event occurred in 1969 when Supervisors Warren Dorn and Kenneth Hann proposed emergency medical care for forester and fire warden areas outside the districts. This would lead to the creation of the paramedic program, which we will cover later on in this video. Also in the 60s, 2 more departments would be absorbed into the LACOFD, those being the Claremont Fire Department and the Glendora Volunteer Fire Department. On February 9, 1971, Los Angeles County was rocked for 12 seconds by a 6.5 magnitude earthquake. 64 people were killed, 2,500 were injured, and numerous infrastructure was either damaged or destroyed. Included in the destroyed structures was the San Fernando Veterans Administration Hospital and Olive View Hospital. The LACOFD also lost stations 46, 47, and 80. Those stations were all written off as they were damaged beyond repair. In total, the earthquake caused around $550 million in damages, or $4.4 billion in today's money with inflation. In 1977, Clyde Al Bragdon replaced Richard H. Houts as chief of the department, becoming the department's 6th chief. He would retire in 1984 and be replaced by John England, who became the department's 7th chief. He himself would retire after 4 years, being replaced by P. Michael Freeman, an operations chief from the Dallas Fire Department. Departments added were Whiter Fire Department and Southgate Fire Department, both in 1975. These would be followed by the Azusa Fire Department in 1983 and Palos Verdes Estates Fire Department in 1986. In 1995, the Los Angeles County Lifeguards officially joined the County Fire Department. Near the end of the 20th century, the department added 5 more departments to its numbers. Panona Fire Department in 1994, Hawthorne Fire Department in 1997, and El Monte Fire Department, Covina Fire Department, and Linwood Fire Department in 1998. In the early 2000s, the department added 3 more departments under its control, those being Inglewood Fire Department and Gardena Fire Department, both in 2000, and La Habra Fire Department in 2005. In 2011, after 22 years, Chief Freeman would retire and would be replaced by Fire Chief Daryl Osby, who became the department's 9th chief and the first African American to become Fire Chief of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. He would serve in this role until his retirement on August 22, 2002. His successor, current Fire Chief Anthony C. Maroney, would become the department's 10th Fire Chief. By the time he became chief, the department had also absolved control over both the Hermosa Beach Fire Department in 2017 and Vernon Fire Department in 2020. Currently, the department has around 117 stations spread across 9 divisions and 22 battalions in 59 cities. Current inventory shows the following: 244 engine companies, 42 truck companies, 129 paramedic rescue squads, 14 water tenders, 6 swift water rescue units, 3 foam units, 3 mobile air light units, 4 hazardous material task forces, 3 health hazmat response teams, 2 urban search and rescue task forces, 58 lifeguard vehicles, 8 lifeguard ocean-going rescue boats, and 2 fireboats. To support air and wildfire operations, the fleet is made up of 10 water-dropping air medical search and rescue helicopters, 10 dozer transports and lowboy trailers, 10 bulldozers, 9 helicopter tenders, 3 rubber tire loaders, 3 track loaders, 2 evacuators, 1 heavy dump truck, 1 fuel tender, and 11 vehicles that serve different functions. The department is currently staffed by around 5,000 firefighters and department personnel. The department contracts mainly with American Medical Response for medical transportation. Due to their close proximity to the city of Los Angeles and to avoid confusion, LACOFD apparatuses are painted mostly red with an orange stripe, unlike the LAFD, which uses a white stripe. Like Chicago, the Los Angeles County Fire Department has faced a shortage of new vehicles, including engines, trucks, and squads. This was noticeable both in their department and their counterparts in the LAFD when the Palisades fire sprung up on January 7, 2025. However, unlike Chicago, the LACOFD has received its delivery on new vehicles in a timely manner. Like many other departments in the area, the Los Angeles County Fire Department has upgraded their gear, with their turnout gear looking just like their city counterparts, with a few minor differences. For example, instead of LAFD, their helmets read LACOFD in a slightly smaller lettering. They also use a number of unique equipment. One of the notable examples is a vehicle known as a Deluge, which is basically a huge water cannon built on a pickup chassis. Currently, it's known that the department operates at least one Deluge unit, Deluge Unit 105. The Los Angeles County Fire Department's paramedic program can trace its origin to the year 1969, when Dr. J. Michael Criley and Dr. A. James Lewis developed Los Angeles County's first paramedic program, which at this point strictly focused on cardiac care and preventing unnecessary cardiac death with early treatment. Together with Battalion Chief James O. Page, they helped create the first paramedic unit. The first unit created would be Squad 59, which was assigned to Station 59, a station that was in charge of fire protection at Harbor General Hospital. This would set up bases for squad units, which by 1971 there were 9. This would not have been possible had it not been for the passing of the Wedworth-Townsend Act. The Wedworth-Townsend Act was an act passed in 1970 and signed into law by then-Governor and future President Ronald Reagan. The act reads, "As used in this article, mobile intensive care paramedics means personnel who have been specially trained in emergency cardiac and non-cardiac care in a training program certified by the county health officer or the director of hospitals designated by the Board of Supervisors, and who are certified by the officer as qualified to render the services enumerated in this article." As used in this article, mobile intensive care nurse means a registered nurse who has been certified by a county officer designated by the Board of Supervisors as qualified in emergency cardiac care. Notwithstanding any other provisions of law, mobile intensive care paramedics may do any of the following. 1. render rescue, first aid, and resuscitation services. 2. During training at the hospital and while caring for patients in the hospital, administer parental medications under the direct supervision of a registered nurse. 3. Perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation and defibrillation in a pulseless, non-breathing patient. 4. Where voice contact or telemetered electrocardiogram is monitored by a physician or a certified mobile intensive care nurse where authorized by a physician, and direct communication is maintained, may upon order of such physician or such nurse to do any of the following. A. Administer intravenous saline or glucose solutions. B. Perform gastric suction by intubation. This basically gave the Los Angeles County Department of Health the ability to experiment with new ideas. While most departments have their paramedics ride in ambulances, due to the sheer size and population inside Los Angeles County, the Department of Health with the fire department came up with a unique approach. Have a two-man rig that carries all the necessary medical equipment, have them respond and begin treatment as soon as possible, without the need of additional units unless needed otherwise. With proper training and guidance from doctors, which are available on hand via a biophone, the paramedics served as doctors' eyes and ears. Typically, paramedics would quickly examine the patient, take blood pressure, pulse, and if needed, set up an EKG. Based on the injuries described in current condition, the doctor could virtually advise paramedics how to treat the patient with in-depth medical treatment so they could successfully make it to the hospital alive. As the years progressed, the training became more sophisticated, to where now in the 21st century, LACOFD paramedics rarely have to consult a doctor. If an issue does arise where a doctor's input is needed, the doctor can now actually see and hear what is going on via a live feed. However, this has become more rare as protocol has been more refined, so for the most part, paramedics use their own judgment to administer treatment. The LACOFD continue to use rescue squads because of the large number of calls they receive. Squad crew are trained in triage, which means they can quickly determine if the call needs an ambulance for transport or if they can handle on scene, and save the privately owned ambulances for either private transportation or for more severe incidents, thereby saving time, resources, and manpower. The Los Angeles County Fire Department has made numerous appearances in the media. The first one, Rescue 8, was a TV show that ran for 2 seasons from 1958 to 1960, and is based around the rescue crew of Rescue 8. We must note, however, that Rescue 8 was not like the modern squads used by the department today, in that the firefighters are not trained in treating the patients and were more focused on rescue. Another TV show is one that was heavily popular during its run, yet you wouldn't think it would be affiliated with the LACOFD, that being Baywatch. During the show's second run on TV, the LACOFD took over control of the Los Angeles County Lifeguard Services. As such, for the majority of the series, the Lifeguard Division was part of the LACOFD. Dick Wolf also produced a series called LA Fire and Rescue, which featured ride-alongs with the LACOFD, including several squads, but the show was cancelled after the first season, due in part to NBC not having a place for the second season, thanks to their coverage of the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris. Lastly, the Los Angeles County Fire Department serves as the main fire department in the viral video game GTA 5 and GTA Online, as the game is based around a fictional version of Los Angeles. This is evident on the rear passenger door of the in-game fire trucks, with the words Los Santos County Fire Department printed on the door, along with the unit number circled in an orange ring, similar to the ones seen on actual LA County fire trucks up until the early 1980s. On top of that, the words Fire Department Rescue Squad can also be seen, which is the same phrase used on a famous rig that was used in another hit TV show, one that might have changed medic treatment history. Emergency was an American television show that broadcast on NBC-affiliated stations from January 15, 1972 to May 28, 1977. The show was a massive success and ran for 6 seasons, plus had 6 television movies. The show's premise was based on the doctors and nurses of fictional Rampart General Hospital and the paramedics and firefighters of the fictional Station 51. The show starred actor Robert Fuller as the head emergency room doctor, Dr. Kelly Brackett, actress Julie London as chief nurse Dixie McCall, and actor Bobby Troop as Dr. Joe Early. The show also starred actors Randolph Mantooth as LACO firefighter-paramedic John Gage and Kevin Teige as LACO firefighter-paramedic Roy DeSoto, who operated the then-fictional Squad 51 as part of the A Shift. Along with the primary cast, regular cast members included Ron Pinkard as Mike Morton, MD, Tim Donnelly as firefighter Chester B. Chet Kelly, Marco Lopez as firefighter Marco Lopez, Mike Stroker as firefighter specialist Mike Stroker, and Michael Norrell as Captain Henry Hank Stanley. The pilot episode focuses on a fictionalized version of the passing of the Wedworth-Townsend Act. Kelly Brackett is initially heavily opposed to the act, believing nothing can replace doctors. John Gage, who's originally part of Rescue Squad 8, is extremely frustrated after losing a patient. DeSoto manages to convince Gage to join the still-developing paramedic program. Early in the pilot episode, the Los Angeles County Fire Department is trying to get ahead of the potential passing of the Wedworth-Townsend Act by having men trained for when the act is passed. However, it is soon clear that without the act, they are essentially useless. Nurses have to travel with the squads as they are the only ones qualified to treat patients. It isn't until Dixie, head ER nurse and then Brackett's lover, is injured and treated by the paramedics that Brackett starts to question his own logic. He eventually realizes that having trained paramedics is better than having someone die without immediate treatment. Not to mention, both Dixie and Early also see potential in the paramedic program. He later notes that seconds matter and that with proper guidance, paramedics' response could mean the difference between life and death. By the end of the pilot episode, the Wedworth-Townsend Act, which was passed with the help of Brackett's testimony, is in effect. What made Emergency unique was that the procedures and rescues were highly accurate for the time. This was because the show had several on-set LA County Fire Department paramedic officials, as well as LA County health officials, including Dr. Criley, as technical advisors. On top of that, most of the cast, mainly Mantooth and Teige, performed their own stunts, and not only went on ride-alongs with real LA County squads, but also attended the same class as real paramedics, although they were not certified paramedics at any point during the show, as they never took the written exam. In addition to the technical advisors, 3 active duty firefighters had roles in the show. Captain Dick Hammer, who played a fictional version of himself, was captain of Engine 51 for most of Season 1, but left before the season finale as he found it difficult to balance filming and working with the fire department, deciding to focus on his firefighting career. Then there's firefighter specialist Mike Stroker, who also played a fictional version of himself and was the engineer, or driver, of Engine 51. The decision to have real LA County Fire Department engineers was actually based on necessity. In the first 3 seasons, Engine 51 was either the studio's own Engine 60 or Engine 127, one of the units that was based out of the real-life Station 127, which was used for the exterior shots of Station 51. The Los Angeles County Fire Department required that a member of the LA County FD that was the rank to drive Engine 51. As Stroker already was part of Screen Actors Guild, a requirement on the studio's part, and was also an engineer at Station 69, he was quickly selected. Finally, there was a man whose voice was in every single episode, but never received official credit. Sam Lanier, who was an actual Los Angeles County Fire Department dispatcher at the time, provided the voice that sounded through the station when Station 51, or any other station, was dispatched. It was occasionally heard when any of the characters were near their vehicle, giving messages to different units. The first thing heard was an emergency tone, which was unique to each station, using the Motorola Quick Call system. He then used a mic and would announce which units would be needed for the response. Though, if both Engine 51 and Squad 51 were needed, Lanier would simply say Station 51. In some cases, both unit names would be said, mainly if one or both units were not in quarters. This was then followed by the address, which was repeated a second time, the closest cross street, any additional information, examples being ambulance is responding or please request you kill sirens on approach, and finally, followed by the time to which the units are dispatched and or unavailable, known as timeout, which is typically relayed in military time. To acknowledge the message, someone at Station 51, typically Captain Stanley, would respond with the appropriate response of units from the station, although other characters have been known to do it as well, in the call sign KMG 365, which is the FCC call sign and station license number assigned by the fire department. While Lanier relayed the information, a person near the stand with a mic and a notepad would write down the information and would hand the notepad to both squad and engine, as this was before computer consoles were available. So, for example, if they received a call at 8:13 p.m., the following would have happened. Station 51. Vehicle accident with injuries. 2015 Woodburn Street. 2015 Woodburn Street. Cross Street, Dakota Road. Ambulance is responding. Timeout 2013.
Station 51, KMG 365.
Unfortunately, on May 21st, 1997, while assisting with a car accident that happened outside his home, Lanier suffered a fatal heart attack at the age of 65. One guest star would also have a career as a paramedic. Actor Bobby Sherman guest starred in episode 17 of season 3, titled Fools, as an intern doctor who was initially very dismissive of the paramedic program before going on a ride-along with DeSoto and Gage. Shortly after appearing in the episode, he left acting and music and became a paramedic and volunteered with Los Angeles Police Department, where he would regularly teach CPR and first aid classes. Sometime in the 1990s, he became a technical reserve police officer with the LAPD, which he continued until around 2017. On top of that, he became a reserved deputy for San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department in 1999 before retiring in 2010. A common misconception is that actor Marco Lopez was a real-life firefighter. However, Lopez himself has confirmed that he never was an actual firefighter. The reason why the myth may have started was because Mike Stroker used his real name for his character in the show, along with Captain Dick Hammer, both of whom were a part of the LACOFD at the time of the show's run. Another rumor is that the show was inaccurate in the display of turnout gear. In most scenes, the firefighters are shown with their helmet and turnout coats, but occasionally they would be seen with their turnout pants. This is actually highly accurate for the time, as in the early 1970s, the firefighting community saw a huge wave of innovation focusing on firefighter safety. This included improvements to turnout gear. At the time, a lot of departments were experimenting with what worked and what didn't, and the Los Angeles County Fire Department was no exception. As such, it seems the decision was laid with the commanding officer of the station, or in Station 51's case, Captain Stanley. In tribute to Emergency, as a kind of hidden Easter egg, in the movie Backdraft, an Engine 51 appears in several scenes. On top of that, the main engine used in Chicago Fire is also number 51. Emergency, Backdraft, and Chicago Fire were all released by Universal Pictures, so whether or not this is a nod to Emergency and Backdraft or coincidence is unclear. Both the hospital and fire station that are used as exterior shots, Los Angeles County Harbor General Hospital, now known as Harbor UCLA Medical Center, and Station 127, stood in as Ramparts General Hospital and Station 51 respectively. Both are still in service to this day. Los Angeles County Harbor General Hospital has been heavily modernized since the show ended. As such, the only remaining detail of the building is the main structure, which has been altered since its time on the show. Unfortunately, the building is scheduled to be replaced by a brand new building next door. As such, the hospital used as Ramparts General will be replaced in 2028 by a new hospital taking up 72 acres. It will cost the county $1.8 billion. Station 127 was home to Engine 127 and Truck 127 at the time of filming. When the show needed to film at the station, Truck 127 would be moved, while Engine 127 would occasionally be used until around the third season, when it was replaced by an engine that the studio acquired. Squad 51 wasn't an actual LA County squad. Rather, it was a vehicle built by the studio using real LA County blueprints and specifications that were provided as the LACOFD was unable to provide a squad in adequate time. Interestingly, 3 models were built, but all used the same external equipment, so when one was replaced, they would take off the lights, rear compartment box, and searchlights. The first one was a 1972 Dodge D300 chassis, followed by a 1973 D300 model. Lastly, a 1974 model was used. For the first 3 seasons, Engine 51 was depicted by Engine 127 and Engine 60, both of which were 1965 open-cab Crown Fire coaches. However, an unknown number of additional Crown Fire coaches were used when both 127 and 60 were unavailable, with minor detail changes. During the 3rd season, the studio acquired a 1973 closed-cab Ward LaFrance P80 Ambassador triple combination pumper specifically for the show. Because this engine was owned by the studio, it freed up Engine 127 and Engine 60. However, both would still be used on occasion as other units. After the show ended, the 1974 D300 was acquired by the Los Angeles County Fire Department, where it was used as a reserve unit. It was eventually retired, although the date of this is unclear. In 1999, it was donated by the Los Angeles County Fire Museum. After a small restoration, she was put on display in 2012. The fate of the 1972 and 1973 D300s are currently unknown. Sometime after its last appearance on Emergency, Engine 127 was modified with a roof before she was eventually placed in a reserve role, which it fulfilled until around the mid-1980s when it was involved in an accident with a semi. Details are extremely limited, and despite our best efforts, we were unable to confirm when the accident happened besides the 1980s. There also appears to be only a single photo of the accident that confirmed its fate. After the show ended, the Ward LaFrance engine was transferred to Yosemite National Park and served as Engine 7 from 1987 to 2008. While in service at Yosemite, she received a new light bar. Because the Yosemite Fire Department was private at the time, the LaFrance was granted the license plate YCSE51. By 2012, she had joined Squad 51 and Engine 60 that also played Engine 51 during seasons 1 to 3 at the Los Angeles County Fire Museum, where all 3 remain on display. After a massive fire struck Universal Studios on November 6, 1990, where up to 400 firefighters and 86 fire department companies from multiple departments responded, the studio replaced Station 60 with a brand new station in 1995, constructed on the ground that made up some of the destroyed structures. In honor of the lasting impact of Emergency, the station was renumbered to Station 51. Today, several units operate out of Station 51, including Engine 51, Squad 51, and Quint 51. Today, Station 51 is part of Division 7 and part of Battalion 1 area operations. As for Station 127, around 2018, Engine 127 and Truck 127 were no longer used. Instead, Quint 127 and Foam 127 are now based out of 127, with Quint 127 receiving a new rig, a 2025 Rosenbauer Commander TDA in 2025, and Foam 127 using a 2012 International Workstar 7600 KME. The station and its crew are a part of Division 1 and Battalion 7 area of operation. In addition to the show, 6 television movies were made. The first one, titled The Steel Inferno, was inspired by the 1974 film The Towering Inferno. In it, Gage and DeSoto, the crew from Station 110, and multiple other units from Los Angeles County Fire Department respond to a high-rise fire. The film not only showcases the response of the Los Angeles County Fire Department to a high-rise fire, despite the building used in the film being in the LAFD area of responsibility, but how medical personnel would respond to a mass casualty event which involves a surge of patients. An interesting detail that many viewers may miss is during several scenes when units initially start arriving at the high-rise. LACOFD dispatcher Sam Lanier is heard instructing different units to move to a different station. This is a real tactic known as restationing, when the number of units available is limited due to an incident or if they're unavailable. This is to ensure coverage in a reasonable manner and maintain response in an adequate time frame. The second movie, titled Survival on Charter No. 220, is about 2 planes, a civilian DC-8 airliner and a Beechcraft 35 Bonanza light aircraft, colliding, while Roy and Gage get trapped by falling debris from the collision. The movie also shows a destroyed Squad 51, however, that is not any of the Dodge D300s used as Squad 51 during its run, nor Squad 8 in the Wedsworth Townsend Act pilot episode. According to the Facebook group Emergency TV Series and other sources, the vehicle destroyed was a 1970 Dodge D300 that was specifically created to be intentionally destroyed on scene. As such, it was never an official LACOFD unit. The movie also showcases the response of the Compton Fire Department, which is shown responding with the LACOFD for mutual aid. This wasn't something made just for the film, but based on the actual agreement between the LACOFD and the Compton FD, which still stands today. In a strange twist, 6 months to the day after the movie was released, an eerily similar situation played out over the skies of San Diego, where Boeing 727-214 Pacific Southwest Airlines Flight 182, with 135 people on board, collided with a Cessna 172. Unlike the TV movie where there were survivors, all 135 people on Flight 182, everyone on the Cessna, and 7 people on the ground were all killed. 9 additional people on the ground were wounded. The third movie, titled Most Deadly Passage, features the medics assigned to Seattle Fire Department headquarters. The film is also noted for the response of the Seattle Fire Department's Maritime Division, which included fireboats Alke and Duwamish, with a third, a small fire response boat, the Leschi, also making an appearance. Interestingly, the Duwamish is still in existence, having been retired in 1985. She is a museum ship in Seattle and is not only a city landmark, but also a National Historic Landmark, due in part to her age as she was built in 1909, making her one of the oldest fireboats still in existence. The fourth film is called Greatest Rescues of Emergency and is a collection of greatest moments from the show's original run. The fifth film, titled What's a Nice Girl Like You Doing, focuses on Gage and DeSoto as they ride along with the San Francisco Fire Department and the San Francisco Department of Public Health Paramedic Division, which operated the ambulances for San Francisco at the time. As with the third emergency film, Most Deadly Passage, the film showcased the department fireboat, the Phoenix. When the film premiered, talks were underway to replace Phoenix with a brand new fireboat that would be funded by a bond passed 2 years earlier. However, by the following year after the emergency film premiered, after a design was submitted, it was determined that the bond would not be able to cover the new vessel, so the city instead redirected the funds to overhaul the Phoenix between 1981 and 1982. This means that the film is one of the last times that the Phoenix was shown before that massive overhaul. Interestingly, the Phoenix is still in service to this day with the San Francisco Fire Department, having been in service since 1955. This makes her one of the oldest active fireboats still in service in the United States, having been in service for 71 years. The sixth film, titled The Convention, brings Roy and Gage back to San Francisco for a paramedic convention, along with characters who appeared previously in What's a Nice Girl Like You Doing. Later in the movie, a gasoline fire erupts at a power plant for a lab in Marin County, which is to the north of San Francisco. John, Roy, and several other characters join in to assist the Novato Fire Department. An interesting detail is that at the time of filming, the Novato Fire Department was composed of both paid and volunteer firefighters. This is also showcased in the movie as firefighters are seen arriving and heading to a fire department supply van to get turnout gear on, which several of the main characters use. However, in the years after the movie's release, the department has fully transitioned to paid firefighters only. Since the show premiered, actor Randolph Mantooth, who played firefighter paramedic John Gage alongside Kevin Teige, has been an outspoken supporter of not only the Los Angeles County Fire Department paramedic program, but paramedic programs across the United States. Although he was offered the chance to be an LACOFD paramedic, he declined. There are several reasons given, such as his wish to continue his acting career and because he didn't feel confident enough to be among the actual paramedics of the LACOFD. However, this didn't stop him from being an advocate. On top of giving speeches and public appearances, he, alongside his co-star Kevin Teige, are executive producers on a documentary film titled Into the Unknown: Their Paramedic's Journey. Both the LA County Fire Department and Chicago Fire Departments have become leaders in the creation of the modern fire departments that we've come to trust with our safety. People such as Robert J. Quinn and Battalion Chief James O. Page have created departments that helped form the core of modern firefighting. But these two departments, along with the others that were mentioned in different chapters of this video, have only scratched the surface of firefighting here in the United States. As mentioned in the beginning, 70% of all fire departments in the United States are staffed by some form of volunteer firefighters, with 64% being completely volunteers and another 18% being mostly made up of volunteers. Currently, it's estimated that there are around 676,900 volunteer firefighters in the US. These people leave their jobs and families to respond, with their only reward being gratitude from the community they serve. However, their numbers are dropping, with there being an estimated 220,000 less volunteers than there were in 1984. Some departments have started to pay their firefighters, but for many, they've lost personnel to the bigger cities in the area, which can offer volunteers a steady paycheck for doing the same job they were as volunteers. Many have been forced to either merge with other departments so that they can cover greater areas, close down, or call in mutual aid for even the smallest fires and rescues. In the town of Schuyler, Nebraska, a town which has special meaning to co-creator Enterprise Patton, for a town of 6,798 people, the Schuyler Volunteer Fire Department is made up of 17 volunteer firefighters. This means that each firefighter is responsible for around 400 people. While the SVFD is fortunate enough to purchase new vehicles and equipment when needed, that equipment is useless without personnel to man it. As we near the end of this video, we would like to give special shoutouts to our local fire departments, the Omaha Fire Department, the Schuyler Volunteer Fire Department, as well as the numerous other fire departments across Nebraska and the United States. At the time of writing, Nebraska had just got done facing its biggest series of wildfires in state history when at least 4 wildfires broke out across Nebraska's panhandle. Despite being on the other end of the state, OFD and SVFD both sent resources to assist, along with other departments in their respective areas. This showcases not only people from one state helping each other, but the commodity between departments, as many firefighters have stated that firefighting is like a brotherhood or a giant family. With that being said, CFD and LACOFD may be big departments, but they do have something in common with the SVFD and OFD. All the firefighters in those departments are willing to answer that alarm that you may sleep through, not for the glory, not for the press attention, or even for Hollywood. They do it because under that turnout gear lies a human who will either run into a burning building to rescue someone who is trapped while putting their life on the line. And who knows, maybe that person could be you. This video is dedicated to honor the memory of Leroy Crossell, the late grandfather of co-creator and lead scriptwriter Enterprise Patton. During early production of this video, Leroy Croxall sadly passed away on June 14, 2024, due to complications with esophageal cancer. His death was a major reason why this video was delayed. He was a major supporter of this channel and is one of the main reasons why we continue to make these videos to the best of our abilities. To Enterprise Patton, his grandfather was his hero, not just to him but his community and his country as well, having served in the United States Army from 1962 to 1964. As such, he will forever be missed, but we will not mourn. Rather, we will continue doing what we love, because that is what he would have wanted us to do. He will continue to remain in our hearts forever.